I flew home for my mom's birthday dinner only to hear, "Sorry, you're not part of this family anymore." Money isn't the same as being present, my sister snapped, her voice dripping with contempt. You can't buy your way into being part of this family. I stood frozen, still clutching my suitcase in one hand and the carefully wrapped vintage brooch in the other. Around us, guests at my mother's 60th birthday party, a party I had paid $3,500 for, began to stare. The elegant venue I'd financed suddenly felt suffocating. "Mom, I paid for this venue," I whispered, humiliation burning through me. "And that's the problem," my father said coldly. "You think your money gives you the right to come and go as you please. Real family doesn't work that way." The party planner approached awkwardly. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to leave." "Leave?" I echoed in disbelief. "I flew 5 hours and spent $900 on a last-minute ticket to be here." My mother wouldn't even meet my eyes as she said, "Please escort Abigail out. She's not on the guest list." Have you ever given everything to people who only wanted what you could provide, not who you are? Have you ever discovered that the family you sacrificed everything for had been using you as their personal ATM for years? If you're wondering what I did when I discovered my entire family had been exploiting me while planning their dream retirement with my money, then keep watching. Trust me, the revenge that follows will be worth every second. My name is Abigail Chen. I'm 29 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I knew what family meant. I was wrong. So very wrong. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio as the eldest of 3 children, I was always labeled the responsible one. Our family wasn't wealthy, but we were comfortable until the recession hit and my father's hardware store started struggling. That's when everything changed. "Abby, honey," my mother said one evening when I was 16, gently closing my calculus textbook. "We need to talk about the store." Dad sat heavily at our kitchen table, something I'd never seen him do before dinner. "The bank's threatening foreclosure if we can't make the next 3 payments. What can I do?" I asked immediately. They exchanged a look before Mom said, "We wouldn't ask if we had any other option." That weekend, I applied to 7 local businesses and took a job at the mall working evenings and weekends. My first paycheck went straight to my parents. I still remember the pride in Dad's eyes, pride that, looking back, should have been shame. "You're saving the family, Abigail," he said. While my siblings Ryan and Melissa continued their normal teenage lives, sports, dances, hanging out with friends, I divided my time between school, work, and helping at the store. When their grades slipped, I became their after-school tutor. "Why does Abby have to help?" Ryan complained once. "Can't we get a real tutor?" "Real tutors cost real money," Mom replied. "And Abby doesn't mind. Do you, sweetie?" Of course I minded, but I smiled and said, "Happy to help." When college decisions came around, I had my heart set on Northwestern's marketing program. My application was accepted with a partial scholarship, but it wasn't enough. "Northwestern is so expensive," Mom said, reviewing the financial aid package. "Even with the scholarship, we'd have to take out massive loans." "I've been saving," I argued, pulling out my notebook where I'd tracked every dollar from 3 years of working. "And I can work while studying." Dad shook his head. "The store still needs you on weekends, Abby. Ohio State has a decent business program, and you could live at home." So I chose the state university with the best scholarship package rather than my dream school. For 4 years, I commuted from home, worked part-time at the store, and maintained a 3.9 GPA. After graduation, I landed an entry-level marketing job in Columbus. For 3 more years, I continued living at home, contributing to bills and helping my siblings with college applications. When Ryan got accepted to Ohio State with a partial sports scholarship, my parents threw a massive backyard party. To our star athlete, Dad toasted, raising his glass. The first Chen to play college basketball. 2 years later, when Melissa received a full ride to Michigan for engineering, They rented a banquet hall. The smartest gen, Mom declared proudly. Full scholarship. At both celebrations, I sat quietly in the background, having written Ryan's application essay and spent countless hours helping Melissa prepare for her entrance exams. Then came the offer that would change everything, a promotion to senior marketing strategist at a tech firm in Seattle. The salary was double what I was making, with stock options and advancement potential. When I announced it at Sunday dinner, the table went silent. Seattle? Mom finally said. That's across the country. Who's going to help with inventory weekends? Dad asked. What about Sunday dinners? Mom added. Ryan snorted. Of course Abby would choose money over family. It's not about money, I defended. It's an amazing opportunity. I'd be foolish to turn it down. So, we're fools for staying close to family? Melissa challenged. That's not what I meant. You've always thought you're better than us, Ryan interrupted. No, Children, enough. Dad silenced them before turning to me. Abigail, you need to think carefully about this decision. Family should come first. I'll visit regularly, I promised. And I'll help out financially when needed. My mother sighed dramatically. Money isn't everything, Abigail. Oh, the irony of those words. For 5 years, I kept my promise. I flew home for every major holiday. I sent generous checks for birthdays and anniversaries. I paid for my parents' 25th wedding anniversary cruise, $8,000 I could barely afford at the time, but their delight seemed worth it. When Ryan crashed his college car and needed a replacement for his first job, I covered the $5,000 down payment. Just until I get on my feet, he promised. I'll pay you back. He never did. When Melissa's apartment flooded, I paid for temporary housing and replacement furniture, another $4,200. You're a lifesaver, sis, she gushed. I don't know what I'd do without you. Apparently, learning to say thank you would have been too difficult. The dynamics shifted subtly over time. My weekly calls home became increasingly dominated by financial discussions. The store's roof is leaking again, Dad would sigh. The quote came in at $7,500. Property taxes went up, Mom would lament. We're short about $2,000 this quarter. Melissa's graduation is coming up. We're thinking of a group gift, a down payment for a condo. Could you contribute $10,000? Everyone else is pitching in. Everyone else being my parents, who I later learned contributed $500 combined. Rarely did anyone ask about my life, my achievements, my struggles. When I mentioned being considered for another promotion, the response was immediate. That's nice, honey. Speaking of which, the store's quarterly taxes are due next week. 3 months ago, my mother called about her upcoming 60th birthday. We're planning something special at Riverside Gardens, she said, naming the most expensive venue in Columbus. The whole family will be there. It would mean everything if you could fly in. Despite a critical product launch scheduled that week, I rearranged meetings, worked through weekends, and booked a $900 last-minute flight. The day before leaving, my mother called again. Honey, the venue is asking for the final payment. Would you mind covering it? About $3,500. I hate to ask, but with your father's medical bills. I transferred the money immediately. Of course, Mom. See you tomorrow. After a 5-hour flight and a 40-minute taxi ride, I arrived at Riverside Gardens with my suitcase and the vintage brooch I'd spent months tracking down. My mother had admired something similar in a magazine years ago. The venue was stunning. Elegant floral arrangements, string lights draped across garden trellises, white linen tablecloths. I spotted my family gathered near the main table. My mother in a blue dress I'd sent for Christmas, my father looking unusually formal in a suit, Ryan and Melissa laughing with cousins I hadn't seen in years. As I approached, their laughter faded. My mother's smile disappeared. My father looked at the ground. Abby, my mother said, her voice strangely formal. We didn't expect you to actually come. The conversation that followed, The one I opened the story with replays in my mind constantly. The public rejection. The accusations that I'd abandoned family for career. The claim that my financial support was somehow proof of my selfishness. But it was Ryan's parting shot that truly revealed everything. As the party planner led me toward the exit, Ryan stepped forward. "Just so you know, we're selling the store. We got an offer last month. Dad's taking early retirement, and they're buying a condo in Florida." I froze. The store that had been the justification for countless financial requests over the years, emergency repairs, inventory shortfalls, property tax increases, was being sold. The medical bills that had been described as overwhelming just yesterday were apparently not an obstacle to retirement in Florida. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. "A while," my mother admitted with a shrug. "But you've been so busy with your important career, we didn't want to bother you with family details." As I stepped back into the warm evening, still clutching the vintage brooch in its carefully wrapped box, I heard my mother's voice drift through the open doors. "Now that that's settled, let's get this party started." The laughter that followed confirmed what the words had made clear. I wasn't part of the family anymore. Not because I had moved away. Not because I had chosen my career. But because I had finally showed up in person rather than just sending money, and that wasn't what they wanted from me at all. The taxi driver glanced at me in his rearview mirror as I climbed back into his cab, tears streaming down my face. "Change of plans?" he asked gently. "The nearest hotel, please," I managed to say. "Family trouble?" he guessed. When I didn't answer, he nodded knowingly. "I've seen that look before. Trust me, whatever happened in there, it's their loss." If only he knew how literally true that statement would become. In my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my party dress, staring at the wrapped brooch. The humiliation was overwhelming, but beneath it, something else was brewing, a cold, clear anger I'd never allowed myself to feel before. I pulled out my laptop and began a spreadsheet. Every check I'd written, every transfer I'd made, every expense I'd covered, dating back 5 years, with notes on what each payment was supposedly for. Store roof repair, $7,500. Property taxes, $2,000 x 8 quarters. Ryan's car, $5,000. Melissa's flood damage, $4,200. Anniversary cruise, $8,000. Birthday venue, $3,500. The list went on and on. By 3 a.m., I documented over $112,000 in family support over 5 years, not including gifts, flights home, and smaller expenses. Out of curiosity, I searched Florida beachfront condos for sale. Within minutes, I found a listing that matched my father's dream location exactly, $750,000 for a 2-bedroom with ocean views in Sarasota. The listing was marked sale pending. I switched to social media, something I rarely checked. There was Ryan, posting from a bar 3 weeks ago. "Final payment on the condo. Mom and Dad are officially Florida-bound. #retirement goals." And Melissa commenting, "Thanks to our Seattle ATM. If she ever actually showed up instead of just sending money, we'd be screwed." My mother had replied, "Girls' trip to Sarasota, once we're settled. Don't worry about Abby. She's too busy being important to visit anyway." The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. It wasn't just about the money, it was the calculated deception, the mockery, the complete disregard for me as a person rather than a resource. My phone pinged with a text from a cousin who had witnessed my humiliation. "What happened?" "Everyone's saying you tried to crash the party." I stared at my cousin's text for a long time before responding. "Ask your aunt what really happened. I'm done explaining myself to people who don't value me." Then I blocked my cousin's number, along with my parents and siblings. I needed clarity, without their manipulation. Sleep eluded me that night. By morning, betrayal had crystallized into resolve. If my family saw me as nothing but an ATM, then it was time to close the account, permanently and with consequences. First, I called my company and requested an additional week of emergency leave. My boss, unlike my family, responded with genuine concern. Abby, is everything okay? This isn't like you. Family emergency, I replied. But not the kind I thought. I need time to handle some legal matters. Take what you need, she said immediately. The launch team can manage. Your well-being comes first. Imagine that, someone prioritizing me over what I could provide for them. Next, I consulted a financial advisor and a lawyer, explaining my situation without emotional filters. I've been financially supporting my family's business for years, I explained, presenting my meticulous spreadsheet. I was told these were emergency loans to save the business. Now they're selling it and buying a retirement condo with the proceeds. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Catherine, reviewed my documentation. Were any of these formalized as loans? No, I admitted. They were family. I trusted them. She nodded grimly. That's usually how it happens. However, we have something to work with here. The texts and social media posts show clear intent to deceive, and the sheer volume of transfers specifically earmarked for the business creates an implied business relationship. What are my options? We can file for an injunction on the sale of the store until ownership percentages are established. Given your significant investment in keeping the business afloat, you have a reasonable claim to a portion of the proceeds. And the condo purchase? If we can prove the down payment came from store proceeds or from funds you provided under false pretenses, we can put a hold on that transaction as well. I took a deep breath. Do it. Over the next 2 days, I built my case with cold precision. Bank statements, text messages, emails documenting what each payment was supposedly for. Catherine filed the injunction against the store sale while I contacted the bank that held the mortgage on my parents' house and the joint credit cards I'd foolishly agreed to co-sign years ago. On day 3, the calls started. I let them all go to voicemail. Dad. Abigail Chin. What the hell do you think you're doing? Call me immediately. Mom. Honey, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Please call us back. Ryan. Way to ruin Mom's retirement. You are so selfish. Hope your fancy job is worth destroying this family. Melissa. We were just joking about the ATM thing. God, can't you take a joke? Call Mom. She's crying. On day 4, I checked into a different hotel and met with a forensic accountant who specialized in family financial disputes. What she found made my blood run cold. There are multiple loan applications using your financial information, she explained, pointing to her findings. A home equity line of credit, 2 personal loans, and a business loan, all listing you as co-applicant or guarantor. I never signed those, I whispered. I suspected as much. The signatures don't quite match your verified ones. Another layer of betrayal, identity theft by my own parents. That evening, my father finally cornered me by showing up at my new hotel. The front desk called my room. Miss Chun, there's a gentleman insisting on seeing you. A Mr. Chun. He's quite determined. Tell him I'll meet him in the lobby, I replied. A public place was safer for this conversation. I found my father pacing by the fountain, his face flushed with anger. When he saw me, he stormed over. What the hell are you doing? He demanded. You're blocking the store sale, freezing accounts. Your mother can't even buy groceries. I stared at him. This man I'd respected my entire life, and felt nothing but cold clarity. Funny, I don't remember you worrying about my groceries when you took out loans in my name without my knowledge, I replied evenly. His face paled. What are you talking about? The HELOC, the business loan, the 2 personal loans, all with my forged signature. We were going to pay those. With what? The Florida Condo Fund. You don't understand, he sputtered. After everything we've done for you. I cut him off with a laugh that contained no humor. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? Use me as free labor since I was 16? Guilt me out of my dream school? treated me like a personal bank while mocking me behind my back. We're your family. No, I said quietly. You're people who share my DNA, who have exploited me for years. There's a difference. What do you want? He finally asked, deflating slightly. Justice, I replied simply. See you in court. The next day, Catherine called with news. The judge granted our injunction. The store sale is on hold, and we've been granted discovery rights to all financial records related to the business for the past 7 years. And the condo? The sale is paused pending investigation of the source of funds. Good, I said. And the identity theft claims? The police are investigating. Given the evidence, they'll likely pursue charges unless we reach a settlement. Phase 1 of my revenge was complete. My family had exploited me financially for years. Now those same finances were being used to hold them accountable. Phase 2 began with my return to Columbus 3 weeks later for the court hearing. This time, I didn't announce my arrival. I simply appeared at the courthouse, dressed in a sharp suit, documentation in hand. The look on my parents' faces when they saw me walk in with Catherine was worth every penny of her retainer. You actually showed up, my mother said, a hint of her birthday party disdain resurfacing. Unlike you, Mom, I don't send money to do my fighting for me. My siblings sat behind my parents, both glaring daggers at me. Extended family filled the rows behind them, aunts, uncles, cousins, all apparently having heard a version of events that cast me as the villain. The judge reviewed our initial findings and granted further discovery, appointing a special master to review the store's books. As we exited the courtroom, Aunt Linda approached me, her expression thunderous. How could you do this to your parents? After everything they've sacrificed for you. I smiled politely. Aunt Linda, what exactly do you think they sacrificed? They supported you, paid for your education. Did they tell you I worked through high school and college to pay my own tuition? That I lived at home for 3 extra years to help them with bills? That I've sent over $112,000 in the past 5 years alone? Her certainty wavered. That can't be right. Ask them how they afforded the Florida condo. Ask them who paid for Ryan's car and Melissa's apartment repairs. Ask them who covered the store's property taxes for the last 8 quarters. As doubt crept into her expression, I handed her my card. When you're ready for the truth, call me. Over the next 2 months, the special master's investigation revealed exactly what I'd suspected: systematic financial exploitation. My parents had been using my money to build their retirement fund while letting the store languish, the very store they'd used to justify thousands in emergency requests. When the identity theft evidence was presented, criminal charges became a real possibility. That's when settlement talks began in earnest. We met in a mediator's office, my parents, siblings, Catherine, and me. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Before we begin, the mediator said, I want to establish that we're here to reach a fair resolution that acknowledges the financial relationship between Ms. Chun and her family. There was no financial relationship, my mother objected. She helped us because we're family. That's what family does. Is identity theft also what family does? I asked quietly. My father at least had the decency to look ashamed. Ryan and Melissa stared at the floor. Catherine presented our terms. Ms. Chun will drop all criminal charges related to identity theft on the condition that all loans taken in her name are paid in full by the Chun family. Additionally, she is entitled to 40% of the store sale proceeds, representing her investment in keeping the business operational over the past 7 years. That's ridiculous, my mother exclaimed. We'll have nothing left for retirement. You'll have 60% of the store proceeds, minus the fraudulent loans, Catherine corrected, which is 60% more than you would have had without Abigail's financial support. What about family loyalty? My father asked, looking directly at me for the first time. Loyalty works both ways, I replied evenly. You can't demand it while giving none in return. After hours of negotiation, we reached an agreement. 35% of the store proceeds to me, all fraudulent loans to be paid from the remaining 65%, and a formal acknowledgement of my contributions to the family and business over the years. As we prepared to sign the papers, Melissa suddenly spoke up. "I'm sorry, Abby," she said quietly. "I didn't realize, I knew you helped, but I didn't know how much." "You called me an ATM," I reminded her. She flinched. It was a stupid joke. I didn't understand what was really happening. Ryan remained silent, jaw clenched, but I could see uncertainty in his eyes now. My mother, however, remained defiant. "When you chose your career over family, you forfeited your right to dictate terms to us." I looked at her directly.
"No, Mom."
"You chose money over me, not the other way around." I sent money because I couldn't be physically present, but I was always emotionally invested. You only wanted the money, never the person behind it. She had no response to that. The settlement was finalized the next day. My parents would keep their house, but downsize their Florida dreams significantly. The fraudulent loans would be paid, restoring my credit, and I would never again be their financial safety net. As I prepared to return to Seattle, Ryan caught up with me outside the courthouse. "Do you hate us?" he asked bluntly. "No," I answered truthfully. "I'm just done being used. For what it's worth, I didn't know about the loans." "But you knew about the constant requests for money." He nodded, looking away. "It just seemed normal. You had so much and we had so little." "I worked for every dollar I have," I said. "Just like you could have." "I know that now." He hesitated. "Is there any way I don't know, start over?" I considered this. Maybe. Eventually. But not with Mom and Dad in the picture. They're still our parents. Biology doesn't excuse exploitation, Ryan. He had no argument for that. 6 months later, I'm rebuilding my life in Seattle. The settlement money went into a foundation I created for first-generation professionals navigating family financial pressures, people caught between worlds like I was. I've found genuine friendships here, people who value my presence rather than my wallet. I've created boundaries with Ryan and Melissa, who occasionally text or call, now understanding that relationships require reciprocity. My parents haven't contacted me since the settlement. Last I heard, they bought a much smaller condo in Florida, paid for with what remained of the store proceeds. Sometimes I wonder if they ever truly see what they did, or if in their minds, I'm still the villain who ruined their retirement dreams. The vintage brooch I bought for my mother now sits in a display case at a women's shelter I volunteer with. When women ask about it, I tell them it represents letting go of relationships that drain rather than nourish. Sometimes the strongest act of self-love is walking away from people who only love what you can give them. If you're watching this and recognize yourself in my story, giving to people who only take, remember this. True family treasures who you are, not what you provide. And sometimes, the family you choose is more genuine than the family you're born into. Real justice isn't about destroying those who hurt you. It's about reclaiming your worth and ensuring they can never hurt you again. My revenge wasn't taking their money, it was taking back my power and my future. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories about setting boundaries and finding justice. Have you ever had to stand up to family exploitation? Share your experience in the comments below. Because the most important lesson I learned through all of this? You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they're selling tickets to watch you burn.